My name is Mar in Color. I am a musician, educator, and coach, sharing my journey as a singer-songwriter and also helping you with yours. I help people with singing, songwriting, piano, music theory, just all the things that go into making music. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to subscribe and stick around. Also check the description box for some free resources that can help you out, and here we go. I thought it made sense to start with just where I'm at right now in my journey, and it's a really weird place. I think the easiest way for me to explain where I'm at is to show you what it looks like when you look up my Spotify. So I would describe myself as like an indie pop rock singer-songwriter type person. But if you look at my Spotify, you'll see pretty much all of my releases are collaborations with my husband, who happens to be an EDM producer named TechTonic. So while I do have a lot of music out, it doesn't feel like I have a lot of music out, if that makes sense. It feels like the music that I have out isn't communicating my vision to the world of like what I perceive my sound to actually be. And if you look on Apple Music, that gets even more confusing, because on Spotify, you'll notice I do actually have a solo album that I released in 2022. It's called Jesus Issues. But if you go to Apple or any of the other smaller platforms, you won't see that there. Not because I didn't release it on that platform, it's because I actually released that album under a different name, and I learned this the hard way after the fact. Spotify allows you to change the name of a release, but Apple does not. So that same album is actually live on Apple Music, but it's under the name Rissa Jade, which I came up with because frankly I had like a time crunch. I was about to release another EDM collab as my first release ever, and I had to pick a name. I spent a whole bunch of time trying to figure one out, and I never really landed on one that I loved, but I had to make a choice, so I did. But I never really liked it, and so because of that, and a lot of other reasons, which I'll get into in a moment, I kind of self-sabotaged, and like I wasn't walking around like, hi, I'm Rissa Jade, because internally I was like, don't call me that, that's not my name. For the record, my name is Marissa. So when I was a little kid, my parents called me Rissa. Mostly I went by Marissa for most of my, teens and whatnot. And then I've kind of gradually grown into Mar over the last like 5-ish years, in my late 20s, early 30s. And it feels so much more authentic, so much more me. So once I figured that out, I was able to come up with a rebrand. Actually, fun fact, my husband came up with my project name, Mar in Color, and I came up with his, TechTonic, so it's kind of fun. But somehow, in the shuffle of all of that, I managed to sort of convince myself that I don't have an album out, which doesn't make any sense, right? Like, clearly I do, it's right there. And people will occasionally be like, hey, I listened to your album, it's really good, I like it. And I'm always like, oh, but are you sure? Like, that album, really? And the thing that I realized is it's not actually a bad album. I'm just really insecure about a lot of things that went into the making of it, who I was when I made it, what my goals were when I made it, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna back it up for a second here and just start at the beginning of this sort of chapter of me releasing music. So when I released that album, it was May 14th, 2022, happens to be my birthday. And at that point in time, I had absolutely no desire or belief that I could perform, like, at all in a live setting. The album itself took me 3 years to make. I started writing songs, like, at all, period, in 2019, after I got out of a huge breakup and was sort of starting fresh, and I had all this open space to, like, finally be creative and grow into the version of myself that I had been kind of suppressing because of this relationship for the past 4 years. So I was writing songs. I really didn't know what I was doing. Like, I literally had just learned that you could buy a $10 cord at Guitar Center and connect your keyboard to your computer and like fake any instrument you wanted. Like, I didn't even know that MIDI connectivity was a thing, which is partially why I hadn't tried writing music sooner. I've always been of the opinion that like I only want to make music if I would actually listen to it, and I'm just not a huge fan of that like acoustic, one person, one layer sound. It's very intimate and there's a place for it, but it's just not my general vibe as a whole. So I was like, well, if I can't make music that's got like a whole ass symphony, then why would I make music, right? So I kind of kept myself small, and I kept myself on this island by myself, like, well, I guess I can't do it. Oh well, I'm just one person. But then once I learned that I could write music that had all these layers and had like a whole symphony behind it, I was like, hell yeah, let's do this. So I ended up, over the course of 9 months, probably a little less than a year, writing all the songs that became the album Jesus Issues. But I still like really didn't know what I was doing at all in the sense of like music production. And my skills overall as a musician were just not that good. And I really hadn't figured out yet how to get better. And that sounds so stupid when you like when I say it, like, Mark, practice, duh. But no, when I think back, I had never been raised to have a growth mindset. Like, the people who raised me did not have a growth mindset. So when I was a little kid, my parents did sign me up for piano lessons. And, you know, they made me stick with it for like 6 years, from the ages like 4 to 10. But I really didn't get anywhere, because even though it was consistent and I had a teacher and all that, I wasn't practicing because I wasn't into it. I wanted to do piano a certain way. I wanted to play like fucking Evanescence and shit. And my piano teacher was just like a nice old lady at church who was a really nice lady, but she didn't get me. She didn't get this undiagnosed ADHD kid who just wanted to only play things that they were passionate about and not anything else. And so she was trying to make me go through the book in order, and I was like, I only want to play songs in minor keys, which is still kind of true. But so my point is, I never really practiced, because no one ever told me that if I wanted to be good, I had to practice. They were just like, here, go to piano lessons. My mom, who's been taking piano lessons since I was 4, that whole time, is still kind of at the same level as when she started. So none of this was modeled to me. When I was a kid in elementary school, I always did really well in school. School was just really easy for me. And the narrative that was pushed to me was, you're really smart. It wasn't, you worked hard. It was, you're just really smart. So again, this idea of effort being tied to achievement was genuinely not ever taught to me or modeled to me, even though it sounds really obvious when I say it now. But it took me like years and years and years to figure this out, even though I literally used to be a school teacher and I was teaching my kids growth mindset. Like, I still hadn't really internalized it for myself until the past couple of years. So during this chapter where I was creating this album, I was just really insecure about my skills, but I hadn't somehow put 2 and 2 together that all the things that I thought I couldn't do were simply because I hadn't tried doing them. So things like performing live, like I could like play a piano song for a YouTube video because I would do like 100 million takes before I got it right enough anyway. And I hadn't really been taught how to practice efficiently or effectively. By the way, I have figured out since then, so I have some freebies. Go ahead and look in the description box and I will direct you to my 3 keys to playing with ease. And there's also a practice chart in there, but it's a really simple PDF, and I think it'll help you if you, like me, have been practicing for years but not getting any better. I've since then figured out how to actually get better, and I'm a lot better now, you'll see. So check that out if you're interested. But I digress. If you couldn't tell, you're gonna get this story in like the ADHD non-linear way. Sorry, not sorry. So I was really insecure. I didn't have any intention of performing because I genuinely thought I couldn't. I thought I wasn't good enough at piano, wasn't good enough at singing, all of those things. Not to mention just like, I was terrified. Like, the one performance that I did before my album came out, my friend Sandra dragged me to an open mic, and I literally, like, the whole time I was playing, my foot was like visibly shaking over the pedal. Like, I was having such a hard time. I did it, and I'm really glad I did, but I was like, my nervous system was just like, what is this? So I'm very grateful to say that since I've performed a lot since then, I don't have that issue anymore. But I really didn't know that it was something I could learn my way out of. I thought that that was just how I was. So when I actually finished the album and released it in May of 2022, I didn't even want to do like an album release show. But I was also really excited about it, and I wanted to like share it with my friends and stuff, but I didn't even have the confidence to try and find a venue or anything. So I had an album release slash birthday slash housewarming open mic party extravaganza in my basement, which was really, really fun. And I would highly recommend in general, just as a type of party that you can throw in your house if your friends are, creative people. So it was a really good way to like take the pressure off of me. Like I did perform a few songs from my album, but then I also had all my friends perform a few songs as well. So it was a really cool vibe. It was intimate. We probably had like 15 people or something. It was pretty low key. Yeah, that was all that I had signed myself up for. And then a couple of other small opportunities like sort of fell into my lap. The first performance that I did like outside of my house was a private event that I was sort of told, you're doing this. I wasn't like asked, hey, would you like to do this? And frankly, I was like, are you sure you want me? Like, you don't even know if I'm good. They booked me for this when they hadn't even heard any of my music. It was somebody who knew me and just believed in me as a person, which is really cool, and I'm super appreciative. But yeah, I was very, very not trying to do things. But here's the thing, as soon as I did end up in that situation and had to play that show, I was like, oh, this is actually really fun. And getting to like connect with people through my songs and have people like vibe really hard with my songs. Again, it was a small setting. There was probably, I don't know, like 30 people or something. But like they were really locked into what I was doing, and I was like, wow. It was a really cool feeling that I hadn't experienced before. So there was that and like a couple other things that happened over that spring / early summer. And I was starting to get momentum. And I was starting to feel like, okay, yeah, I do actually want to maybe push myself out of my comfort zone and try to do this a little bit more. But my husband and I went on a long road trip that summer, which we do frequently because he's a teacher and I used to be a teacher at that time. I still was. So summer break was like, hell yeah, let's go be vagabonds. And so that particular summer we drove up the East Coast and it was really cool. When I got back that fall and I went back to school, my health kind of went down the tubes, and also I was just really busy and stressed out. My health went down the tubes because I was really stressed out. Being a teacher was just not healthy for me, hence why I don't do it anymore. But I kind of lost that momentum. And if anybody else watching this has ADHD and can relate to this, like when you have the idea, you're so excited, you're like, hell yeah, let's do it. And then if something interrupts you from doing it right away when you are still on fire, it's really hard to get that fire back. So gosh, I think in the entire year of 2023, I played one show, which again was just sort of dropped into my lap by a friend. And that was it. So 2020, the other thing too, I was planning a wedding. So in summer of 2023, we got married, which yay, also meant another extended road trip. And then when we came back in the fall, my health got even worse, which frankly, it was not great during our honeymoon. We spent like half of it with me being sick and staying in random motels so I could just like lay there horizontally and be a mess. So it was good and it was also rough, but I digress. The silver lining of me being a hot mess for those couple of years in the middle there is that I did write my next album worth of songs and made demos of them, but then they just kind of sat there because at the time I was working on the wedding was sort of like a year-long mega creative project similar to making an album. I had like a million different craft projects embedded into it. Like I made my own wedding veil and I made all these, I did a lot of stuff. So I had told myself like, okay, great, I'll do it after that. But then after that I was really sick and it was just not gonna happen. So long story short, that was the period where I ended up quitting my job as a school teacher. I used to teach elementary music and middle school choir. And since then I've just been kind of on this new chapter of my journey. So at the beginning of 2024, last year, I was initially just trying to get my health back, but pretty shortly after I did, I was like, okay, I guess now I'm ready to actually lean into music, because the thing that was holding me back was my health, and my health was holding me back because I was a teacher and I was so stressed and so just exhausted and miserable and nauseous and dizzy. It was not good. I was also losing my voice constantly from like trying to project over 30 kids at a time all day long, every single day. And just, I didn't have any voice left for me. Like those demos that I recorded during that era, they don't sound good. The songs are great, but the vocals, no. So I was really excited to finally have like my voice back and be able to use it for me. Actually, I started taking voice lessons like in a pop sort of style, pop rock, whatever, just not classical voice lessons that fall after we came back from our honeymoon. So a few months before I quit my job officially, I was starting to kind of like figure out. I also read The Artist's Way during that time period, which I would highly recommend if you haven't. But I started to kind of get my creative mojo back and my confidence in myself, my confidence in my ability to actually improve. And anyway, it spiraled into that spring after I quit my job. So last spring now, well, almost a year ago, I started playing a lot of shows. Like it was like 0 to a million. It was crazy. As soon as I sort of put it out into the universe that I was like ready to do the thing, all of a sudden I was constantly doing the thing. And at first I wasn't ready, but I got ready real fast because I had to. In this new renaissance period of me playing shows and putting myself out there with this new brand that I also had launched in that same kind of time period of transition when I started taking voice lessons and quit my job, that was when I went into the new Mar in Color chapter. A lot of time had passed since I had initially released my first album, Jesus Issues, and I haven't yet finished actually making the second album, which is going to be called Violets Bloom, the one that I demoed and wrote while I was a mess. I still don't have that out. All the other things that I've done between now and then were collabs with my husband. We released an EP together when we got back from our honeymoon that fall, so it was kind of like my first launch into Mar in Color was a joint EP. But again, it's not my sound, it's his sound, but with my sort of like flavor infused into it. He produces the tracks in his like electronic style, and I write and sing vocals over the top. So it's not exactly congruent with my actual vision. It's really cool and I love doing it, and I love that I get to perform with him as well. But when people ask me like, oh, do you have any music out? I'm always kind of like, well, yes, I do. I have a lot of collabs, and I guess I do have an old album I made myself when I didn't know what I was doing. But I was always so like apologetic about my album to the point where I like almost like forgot it was there and tried to brush it off like it wasn't. And in hindsight, that's ridiculous, right? Like I have an album, period. Want to listen to it? There it is, go listen to it. But somehow with the passage of time, I convinced myself that because it was old, because it wasn't really truly launched, like it was almost like I did a soft launch, right? I released it on social media and I did, you know, instead of an album release show, I had a party in my basement with my friends, but I never like pushed it out into the world in any meaningful way that would encourage people who don't know me to listen to it. I didn't even order like CDs. I originally wasn't going to do any of that, and then people who knew me personally were asking about it, so I ended up like burning CDs and making the booklets myself on Photoshop and printing them out at Staples, and it was like it was a lot of work, and it probably wasn't even any cheaper than ordering CDs, but I was just not taking myself seriously as an artist yet, so it didn't even occur to me. I mean, the minimum order would have been like 100, and I was like, I don't know 100 people who care what I'm doing. Didn't occur to me that that was true currently, but it didn't have to stay true in the future. So that's kind of how I got to where I am right now. Why the heck did I sort of erase my album from my memory / the world? Because it wasn't on purpose, and I didn't fully do it, but somewhere between me making the album and putting it out in the world, which at that time I was really, really proud of it and really, really excited about it. But then somehow that like stopped. Even though the album itself is no less good than it was at the time, I somehow forgot. I realized there's actually several things that were holding me back. And these are things that affected why I took so long to make and release the album in the first place, as well as why I sort of didn't stand by what I made with confidence. One of those factors is the gap. There's a very big gap between the music that I choose to listen to and the music that I ended up making. My overall music taste, it is all over the place, like everyone says their music taste is, but like the core of my music taste is what I would describe as like sad, artsy, alternative / indie rock that's a little unhinged. So my favorite band is The National. I'm also just now getting into Radiohead in my 30s, which is hilarious and embarrassing and awesome. You get the idea. So that's what I listened to. But then what I made was more, well, it was piano driven because that's what I can play. And guitar is like my Achilles heel for some reason. And I know that I was just talking about growth mindset, and it is something I plan on tackling someday, but right now I don't have space to make it a priority. So for now, guitar is still my Achilles heel. But it's really hard to make music sound like indie rock when you can't play guitar and you don't have a band and you're not confident enough to like ask people to be in your band. So you're just like, well, all right, I'm on an island by myself. So instead of making an indie rock record, I made a piano-driven indie pop record. Even though I'm very proud of how it turned out and I believe it sounds really good, there's still this part of me that's like, no, but you don't understand. My musical soul actually sounds more like this, not like this. There's also, my album sounds a lot happier than it is, which there is something to be said for like happy sad music where the lyrics are sad but it sounds happy. But I really do prefer music that's just fucking sad. I always have. Like as a little kid, I was enchanted, just absolutely mesmerized by Evanescence the first time I saw them on TV when I was 10. And I like made it my whole personality. It never really went away. But again, I digress. So for one, there's this gap between what I actually put out and what my soul wishes I had put out. And that gap was because of the fact that I didn't have a band and I wasn't confident enough to find one. That also affected my timeline of creating the album because I was like really, really hell-bent on having real drums. Because drums, I realized while making the album and trying to figure out like what my sound actually was, one of the strongest common denominators between all of the music that I really, really, really love is that they all have really intense, really chaotic percussion that's like very forward in the mix. So again, if you haven't listened to The National, that's probably the best example. Their drummer, Brian Devendorf, is my favorite drummer, but I was really hell-bent on having a real human record drums. So that's like a complicated endeavor if you're not someone who has a band. That means you have to find someone who you can communicate your vision to and then also pay for studio time because good luck like miking a drum set correctly in your house and having it sound good. That's just not something that I was or am at the stage where I feel confident about. So I spent a lot of time like spinning my wheels and stalling and just waiting and just letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. So eventually I ended up giving in and letting my husband help me program drums, which I should have done in the first place because I have an EDM producer who like also is a band teacher. He like teaches middle school and high school band. Not anymore. He now teaches music production at school, which is dope. But at the time, he was literally teaching drumline, and I was being stubborn about my vision. I was being a purist. That's really the main thing I would describe how I held myself back. I was being a purist. I had this idea that everything was going to be real instruments, real humans, and yeah, that is the ideal. But if I'm a solo artist and I don't have the confidence to ask people to be in my band, that's a tall order. Now, lucky for me, I'm also really influenced by like orchestral instruments and like lush layers and string quartets and brass and all that stuff. So I arranged a bunch of stuff for those instruments and I originally used like the fake MIDI versions. But because I have a bunch of friends who teach band and orchestra, I was able to have real humans record those parts pretty easily. And again, it's not as difficult as miking a whole drum set. It's a lot easier to have your friend bring her cello over and just like record it with the same mic I used on vocals. So really this leads me to the number one thing that held me back. And that is, which I already mentioned earlier, I was really insecure and ashamed and embarrassed of where my skills were at, especially being that like I mentioned, I used to teach music in the schools, which means I literally have a music degree. So one would think having a music degree means that you're a certain level of good, right? But not necessarily, because the way that they train you in music school is not at all aligned with the vision I actually had for myself as a singer-songwriter in like the indie pop rock spectrum. The voice lessons that I took during that period of time were classical voice lessons. And even then, I really struggled. Like, I was not one of those people who showed up like, with this big operatic voice ready to go. I was like, holy shit, what did I just sign myself up for? These people are singing opera. Like, I shit you not, when I started music college, I could not sing the F at the top of the treble clef. Like, that blows my mind, because now, after all these years of working on it, my high notes are like so much stronger than my low notes, which is really cool. And it proves growth mindset is real. But anyway, so like I said, it took me a really, really long time to get to a point where my skills were even like mediocre, because they weren't just like awesome to begin with. I feel like I've always been internally really good at music, but not externally. And that's the same way that I still feel today about visual art. I have lots of visual ideas that my hands don't have the skills to carry out quite yet. So it is on my someday bucket list to go to art school. So while my album does actually sound good, it doesn't sound good because I was good. It sounds good because I meticulously, like, I did so much work to make it sound good that I somehow confused that with thinking that it doesn't sound good. It does sound good, but I'm just insecure about the fact that it took me so much effort to make it sound good. I spun my wheels so hard. I re-recorded vocals so many different times and did so much editing. Like, there's one song on the album where I did play guitar, and like, oh my god, I did so much editing to make it sound like a real guitar player played guitar, even just like a little bit. But yeah, somehow along the line, I allowed those feelings of insecurity about, like, people have no idea. I joke that I made the album with duct tape and bubble gum because it really feels like that. But I forget that I'm a fucking perfectionist. So if it didn't sound good, I wouldn't have released it. I would have held on to it for another 5 years until it sounded good. And I somehow forgot that it does actually sound good. And I finally, after like avoiding it for a while too, because again, when people mention it, I'm always like, oh, I don't know, I guess I have an album, but you know, and yeah, it's okay. I also just like didn't listen to it. I like avoided it. Like, a couple times I've been in situations where somebody has played my music out loud while I was there, and instead of being like, yeah, I was always like, and it's so stupid because I saw somebody on Threads posted something to the effect of, if you're not your biggest fan, why the fuck would anybody else be? Right? If I'm not screaming my own music off the rooftops, like, listen to this, it's great, and playing it on all my Instagram posts in the background and like all my reels, then why would anybody else listen to it? It's hard not to be mad at myself sometimes when I realize how fucking stupid I am about stuff like this. But the important part is that I'm working through it and moving forward with this knowledge of like how I used to be, and sort of being strategic about how to move forward now. So I finally re-listened to the album a couple days ago in its entirety and just like took it in. And you guys, it's like genuinely really good. It sounds really good. I am so mad at myself for like thinking that it was bad and being apologetic about it, instead of being like, fuck yeah, I made it, you're welcome, here you go, listen to it. So here's my plan forward. Now that I'm ready to like fall back in love with my own music and stop apologizing for it, I'm gonna relaunch it into the world. And this is gonna solve multiple problems. For one, it's gonna solve the problem of the album isn't even under my name on all the streaming services. It is on Spotify and it is on YouTube, but like Apple Music users who look up Marin Color, they only see my collabs. There's not even a separate Marin Color page on Apple Music. It's just TechTonic and Marin Color as like a collab duo. This is a really good way for me to fix that. I'm also really lucky, like I said, to have a husband who can produce and mix and master, but he's also come a really, really long way since we made that album together. So he is going to remaster it for me, which I'm really, really excited about. Because again, it sounds good, but it could sound even better today. And overall, I don't want to put too much effort into like tweaking things, but there's like 2 or 3 little spots that actually do bother me when I listen back. It's incredible that it's only 2 or 3 little spots, because like I said, I know where I was actually at skill-wise at the time, but I would really like to fix those 2 or 3 spots so that I'm not embarrassed when I listen to them. I need to be able to sell this with my full self and mean it. So I'm gonna be able to like fix those 2 or 3 spots by re-recording the vocals and then have him remaster the whole thing and have a product that not only sounds as good as it did back then, but sounds actually better. So I'm like really gonna be proud of it and ready to be like, here you go, world, listen to it. Also, it's crazy how the universe kind of like plants these ideas in our head before we even were like ready to have them ourselves. But I am also really excited because I'm working on a music video for the title track. That's another long story that I'll share more about when the video comes out, but this is an idea that I had years ago and I've been hanging on to, and the universe just dropped a videographer in my lap who wants to help me with this vision. So I'm really, really excited to get to do it. And it just feels like the perfect synergy of everything. So yeah, I'm gonna be in the process of just falling back in love with this album and like doing a hard launch, because back when I released it in the first place 3 years ago, I did a soft launch because I was terrified. And I'm not the same me that I was back then. So I'm really excited. Oh, I'm also getting a band together. I forgot to mention that part, because this version of me is not too scared to ask people to play in my band. And even though I was a little bit scared, it was crazy, you guys. As soon as I put the ask out in a couple of my local Facebook groups, I was shocked at the response that I got. I was thinking in my head that I was gonna have to like convince people that they should be in my band because I'm good. But people were just like psyched about the opportunity to play original music. There were so many people who said something to the effect of like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm so sick of playing in cover bands. People want original music. People want to hear original music, and people want to play original music. But there are a lot of people in the music scene who play music who don't write music, and that just like blows my mind, because writing is like the best part. You get to like alchemize and transmute all the feelings and stories and traumas and all the things that are floating around inside of you, and like turn them into something beautiful that other people can relate to, and you can help them transmute their feelings by listening to it. It's so fucking cool. So that leads me to the next point. I'm going to be doing a free masterclass live on Zoom on April 22nd. So if you're watching this like right away, you might be able to sign up to go and watch it live. If not, check the description box for updates. So yeah, in my free masterclass, I'm gonna go over how to go from zero to your first EP. Because as I've just shared with you, there is so much that I would do differently now looking back if I knew everything that I know now when I made my first album. I'm gonna be totally honest with you, it wasn't an easy process. It was long, it was confusing, I was insecure, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. It was like, I kept going forwards and backwards and sideways. I literally lost all my computer files halfway through and had to start over. Like, I shit you not, it was a mess. But I now have managed to like streamline and simplify things to a process that like takes you literally from zero, meaning you've not written a song before, or maybe you have some vague ideas but you don't know how to actually like turn them into a song. Maybe you have been writing songs but there's something that's you're struggling to like put everything together. Whatever the case, maybe you don't have any instrument skills, maybe you have a little bit, you can play some chords but you're not like super confident. Wherever you are, beginner, intermediate, go from there to actually having a fully actualized body of work that's like produced, that's like ready to go and post on the internet. All the things in between there. So if you're curious at all about how I would recommend going through that process with everything that I know now, check out that link in the description box. I am so excited to get you guys to talk about all the stuff, because I know I talked a lot in this video, but there is so much that I'm just like scratching the surface. And I'm also gonna finally be working on actually making my second album that I've had demoed and like written for a few years now, just sitting there collecting dust while I got my shit together. And now that I have a band that I'm kind of working on, I'm just really excited to actually move forward. So step 0, relaunch, re-fall in love with, reintroduce my first album into the world. Step 1, make my second album. If you are interested in following the process, I'm hoping to get more in the habit of doing long form YouTube videos because it's actually my favorite platform. So I would love to have you stick around. You can also check out my original music that is out already, and you can check out some live performances if you want to check out the rest of my channel. And I would highly recommend, I also just made a reaction video of me falling back in love with my whole album and kind of like talking through the parts that I'm obsessed with and the parts that I would like to be able to do better now. So if you're curious at all, click on that video as well. All right, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and talk soon. Bye.